All right, now you've been warned. So I've been helping international students with their taxes, I think beginning 2002. And I've learned more than I ever dreamt I would learn about taxes related to non-resident aliens, but I'm happy to help. I enjoy doing this, primarily just because I enjoy being with you guys. So I've got a website here. Let's see. I'm going to click this out of the way, I think. And you want to make a note of that, and I'll put it in the chat box too. This is kind of the entry point for getting into all the information that I have available for you. And I got to see, where does the chat box go when I'm sharing my screen? There we go. The other thing, if you could go ahead and just make a note of your name, first name, surname, just so I know who's been able to hear this, and we'll probably be doing this again at another time too, and I'll notify those who aren't able to make it. So this is the first page of the website I put together, and this gives you kind of a one-page overview of the tax issues. And we're not going to go over too much of this right now. Mainly what we're going to focus on is what you want to be doing as an employee to make sure that everything goes smoothly when it comes tax time. And I have a couple of slide presentations. Maybe I'll just show a little bit of this too. This tells you how to determine what your status is, whether you're non-resident alien or a resident alien. Two popular questions is, do I have to file? Can I file late? There's some pages there that answer that. Let's see, get this out of the way. This menu has a lot of the common tax forms, either that you will receive or you will be filling out, and information about them. And then some other topics here related to taxes that often come up. So if you have questions, this is the first place to start looking. There's a search box up there. Or you can post a question to me, and I will, if there's a page here that would help you, I'll send that on to you. Or maybe we'll create a new page because it's a topic that hasn't been covered yet. But right now we're going to go down to getting help. So this is a good page for you say, hey, I want help. So what is available for you? And what we're going to look at is some Google Slides. And right now I've got four sets of slides available. This also goes over the issue of whether you're a non-resident alien or a resident alien. And what we're going to be looking at right now is employment and taxes. So let's see here. Looking at the names, it looks like we have a lot of new arrivals here. I'm kind of curious, is there anybody who's on this list who is already working, has already worked either a campus job, OPT, CPT? Maybe you can do okay, got one that worked on campus. I think most of you are just dreaming of getting a campus job at this point, hoping for that. Okay, good. So the types of work that you can do under the terms of your visa is you can work on campus. There's a lot of jobs, unfortunately, that are not available because PSU's closed due to COVID. You can do an internship that's under CPT. And then there's OPT, which you would do after graduation. And Emma, you guys are doing workshops on CPT and OPT, correct?
Yeah, I think we're going to start offering some more. We haven't been doing them as much in the virtual environment, but we have a lot of resources like this available, and staff are available to kind of answer questions as needed. But we're working on revamping
Okay.
those virtually, yeah.
So when you do get hired, if you get hired by PSU for a campus job, they're going to treat you as an employee, which is correct. That's what they should do. You're an employee. But when you're doing CPT or OPT, one, you may be working with a company that has never employed an international student, and they don't know some of the issues related to international students and how that affects their taxes. And we're going to talk about some of those things. They really should be hiring you as an employee, because the terms of your OPT and CPT is it's an option to get practical experience in your field of study. And in order to get that experience, you really need somebody who's supervising you. By definition, an independent contractor is not supervised. They're fully equipped to do the job, and the company simply pays them a fee to do that job without any supervision. Now, that's not to say I see lots of students who do get hired as an independent contractor. So when you are getting hired for OPT or CPT, that's one question you want to ask them is, are you hiring me as an employee or an independent contractor? The one main difference is that when they're paying you as an independent contractor, they're not going to be withholding federal and state taxes. And the withholding of federal and state taxes is as a prepayment towards the tax that will be due when you file your tax return. If nothing's withheld and you have a pretty good job and you're working most of the year, you could end up owing, $3,000 to $6,000 in taxes all of a sudden that has not been withheld from your paycheck month by month as you got paid. And that can be a pretty unpleasant surprise to get. And again, anytime you have questions here, questions come up, raise your hand, put something in the chat box. So let's say you do get a campus job. You're going to go to the international office. They're going to have you fill out some paperwork. And with that paperwork, you can go to the Social Security office and get your Social Security card. You'll apply for it there. I think they give you a temporary letter when you leave showing that you've applied for it. And then it takes approximately 1 to 2 weeks to get this card in the mail. I'm not sure, Emma, do you know anything about changes in the Social Security office due to COVID?
Not since March or April. Folks can still apply for a Social Security card and number with an in-person appointment. And for anyone who is applying for CPT or OPT and doesn't have the SSN at that point, we can provide information on the steps to do that. I'm not certain of any changes to the timing of it. After you do the meeting to get the card, I think it's still about the same amount of time to get the card.
Okay. So when you do get your card, don't carry it around with you. Keep it in a safe place. Some employers will ask to see the card. That's fine. Take it in, show it to them. Some may want to make a photocopy of it, but just keep that in a safe place. Security theft or identity theft is a big problem here. And you losing your wallet with your Social Security card in it can cause some problems to you. You're going to give that Social Security number to your employer. Your employer is required to verify that you have a number. However, people forget. For example, maybe when you start employment, you don't have your card yet. And they say to you, well, just bring it in when you get it, and you both forget about it. I've had situations where students come when it's tax time and their tax document that they receive from the employer has no Social Security number on it, and they've filed it without your Social Security number. And it just creates a lot of unnecessary work. So you want to make sure that you get your Social Security number to your employer as soon as you get your card. And One suggestion, and this applies to your Social Security card, giving it to them, and also a document called the W-4 that they will ask you to fill out, is I've had situations where they have done that. The student has done that, but then later on in the year, again, those tax documents get generated and there's no Social Security card on it, or maybe they didn't do withholding the way they should have. And the employer says, well, I never received that. Well, my suggestion to you is make a photocopy of your Social Security card and have the person that you give the Social Security number to sign your copy, sign and date it, and you keep that in your records so that if it comes up, they say, well, you never showed it to me. You have proof that you can say, no, I did show this to you. Now please fix the problem. So the taxes, the way we do taxes these days in the US is each paycheck that you receive, a portion will be held for state tax and for federal tax. The amount is not the exact amount that you're going to owe. It's just a calculation that's an estimate. It's a calculation so that at the end of the year, you will have had maybe just a little bit more than enough of federal and state tax withheld, so that when you complete your forms, you get a little bit of a refund rather than owing money. The W-4 is a document that helps the employer to calculate the amount of federal and state tax to withhold. They've made some changes to the W-4, and I have to be honest, I don't really understand how to fill those out very well. My employer just keeps doing it the same old way as before they made this revision. And I don't know if employers still have the option of using the old style W-4. But if you have problems, first ask your HR department for assistance in that. If they're not able to help you, contact me and we'll see what we can do to get through that. If you do have a treaty benefit, there is also the 8233 that you would, I think you submit that instead of the W-4. And this is the document that you have a treaty benefit. I think most of the people watching the presentation are from India. You do have a treaty benefit, but it's handled differently than all the others. And you get something that's called the standard deduction on your tax form. And it's, I won't go into all the details there. Your mind would just explode. The other thing you want to do, I think I cover this later too, but I'll mention it here, is you want to make sure your employer knows that you're a non-resident alien. And we'll go into some of those reasons why. So this is what the old style looks like. It's fairly simple. You're putting in your name and address here. You're going to check that you're single, put in your Social Security number, and then you're going to write non-resident alien in this line here, and then you sign and date it. And you submit that to your employer, but I would encourage you to make a copy of that for your own records. And that's all stuff I've mentioned already. Oregon has their own form for withholding. Typically, you know, for all the years that I've been employed, no employer has asked me to fill out an Oregon one. What they do is they just assume that the same data that you use for the federal W-4, they'll use the same information for the state, but you could possibly do it a little bit differently. But it's not very, again, it's not very complicated to fill out. So I mentioned this already. Make sure your employer knows that you're a non-resident alien. The most important reason is because non-resident aliens are not subject to a tax that all other US taxpayers are subjected to, and that's the FICA tax. FICA is a combination of Social Security and Medicare tax, and the total is 7.65% of your income. So if you get paid $100, $7.65 is going to go towards that FICA tax. If you make $10,000 in the year, that's going to be $750 or $765. So you're not subject to that tax. You don't want to pay that tax. You don't want it withheld from your paycheck. So you need to let them know that you're not subject to that tax. And again, if you're working for a company that's never hired a non-resident alien before, that may be new information. I do have a page on the website that if you are working with somebody who's not familiar with that, you can print that off, and there are links to the IRS website that gives your employer the information that they need. And that's this is the link to that right there. So you want to ask them, what do you require me to do to document that I'm a non-resident alien and not subject to those taxes? PSU has their own form that they use, the HR department. It's the CONRA, and that's due when you're hired. And then each December, you're required to fill that out again, and they will use that for the following tax year. Failure to do that is the HR department will assume that you are a resident alien, and they'll begin withholding the FICA tax. And once FICA tax is withheld, it can be a long process to get it back. So you want to make sure that you get all the paperwork filled on time. They will send you a reminder in December, or maybe it's early, or even earlier than December, that I think they're due by December 15th to the HR department, which is today. You want to make sure you get that in. That allows them time to process it and to make sure that your paycheck that you receive in January is correct in terms of whether they should withhold or not. So one thing I don't like about doing these Zoom webinars is I can't tell if I'm putting people to sleep or not. So I hope you're all staying awake. Some countries have treaty benefits. You can look this up on PSU's tax treaties and non-resident alien guidelines, and they have a list of the treaties that are available for different countries. The US doesn't have a treaty with every country, and not all of the treaties have provisions that affect your taxation as an international student. And again, if you're a student from India, there's no paperwork that you need to file out to get this treaty benefit. But if you're from another country that has a treaty benefit, you do need to look at this page here. So you're going to get periodic pay statements. Some companies pay weekly, some pay twice a month, some pay monthly. These days, you're most likely getting a digital version of that. They're not giving you a paper copy, although even large companies sometimes will still mail you a paper copy. So this is going to be a document that shows how many hours you worked, what's your hourly rate of pay, what's your total pay, how much tax was withheld. Whether it's a paper copy or a digital version, and especially if it's a digital version, you want to download a copy of that, and don't wait. Sometimes you might work for a company and you're only gonna work for it a short time. And let's say you stop working in June, and then tax season comes around in 9 months, and you go to their website to try to download stuff, and you don't have access because you're no longer an employee. So you want to make sure that you download these, and I would download them as they happen, because you also want to inspect them. So this is a sample of a PSU. From the old days, we still call them pay stubs, and I won't go into why they call them pay stubs, but it basically, again, it gives you the details. So this shows the gross. Actually, I got, let me come over here. It'll show the current period, how much you're getting paid for this period, and then it will show you the year-to-date amounts. So this is showing the amount you got paid, how much was deducted, how much got transferred to your bank account if you do direct pay, or how much was on the check. And then it'll usually break down how many hours you worked, your hourly rate of pay, and how that all adds up. What you want to do is you want to verify that no Social Security or Medicare has been withheld from your check. I would look at every pay stub just to make sure that that's the case. So this is the way the PSU one looks. So here's how much was withheld for federal tax, and they have a different classification for a resident here and then a non-resident. Down here is how much state tax was withheld. And then these two, Medicare and Social Security, combined, they call that FICA. That's how much was withheld for Medicare and Social Security. Now, this person was a visiting scholar, and they should not have had that amount withheld. Took them a long time to get that straightened out. So that's why you want to make sure they have all the documentation they need when you start work. And again, keep copies of your pay statements, whether it's paper or a PDF. If you want to, after you've received your last one of the year, that will have a year-to-date total. So if all of the other previous pay statements look fine, there's no questions about that, you could discard those, and you would probably want to shred those. But you want to make sure that you keep the last pay statement of the year, which has your year-to-date totals. These can be really helpful when it comes time to file your taxes. So this is just a summary. You know, each pay period, review the information on your pay statement, make sure that you've been paid the proper amount, make sure no Social Security or Medicare taxes have been withheld. If the payment's made by direct deposit, verify it's been deposited into your account and that it matches the amount on the pay statement. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to have a discrepancy there, but you don't know unless you check. So then after you've worked a whole year, so in taxes, we talk about calendar years. A calendar year goes from January 1st to December 31st. So after the calendar year has ended, in January, you will receive from your employer a W-2. And what it will show is the total amount you've been paid and how much federal, state, Social Security, and Medicare taxes have been withheld. And this W-2 is what gets transmitted to the IRS. And that's what they use to match when you fill out your tax forms and you send it to them. They match the records that come from the employer to make sure everything matches and is correct. You should receive that by the end of January. If you haven't, contact your employer. If you have quit your job and have moved, make sure your employer always has your current mailing address until you've received all the W-2s from them that you're going to receive. After that, you don't need to keep them up to date. But like, let's say you quit. You finish a job in June. In January, your employer is going to send you a W-2, or your former employer. You need to make sure that they have your correct address. If you're paid as an independent contractor, you will get a 1099 miscellaneous, and it'll just give you the total amount that you've been paid. So when tax time comes, and you've been working, there's 4 forms that you're going to fill out. The 8843, there's no financial information that goes on there. And even if you don't work, you need to fill this form out. And what you're doing is you're just documenting that you're here as a student, and as a student, that you're a non-resident alien. The 1040 NREZ, NR stands for non-resident, EZ stands for short form, and that's what most of you should be able to fill out. There's also a longer form, the 1040 NR, which again stands for non-resident. Then under certain circumstances, you may need to fill out the larger one. If you only need to do the 8843, I have a whole page. It's fairly simple to do yourself. You can see the instructions there. Oops, let me make sure I got all this. So in addition to the federal forms, Oregon has their own forms, and each state, it has its own separate government, their own separate tax system. And while there's similarities, they're not identical. And if you work in Oregon, you're going to fill out an Oregon tax form. The other thing that can be a little bit confusing is according to your immigration status, you have a status as either resident or non-resident. This may be different than the way your state defines residency within the state. So don't assume that just because you're a non-resident in terms of your federal status, that the state considers you a resident or a non-resident. There's a few other documents that you may receive. This is commonly used if you receive scholarships and there's a taxable portion. These have to do with your health insurance. If you're a non-resident, this doesn't involve, you don't need to put any information on this. This is something that the school would give you that shows how much tuition you paid. If you have a bank account, you maybe earn some interest. If you invested, you might get one of these. Let me just say too here, because this is a whole lot of information, you don't have to remember all this stuff. It's all up here on these slides. You can review it. My tax website goes over all these documents. If you have questions about them, you can contact me if you're uncertain about it. So don't worry about remembering all this stuff. So when it comes time to prepare your taxes, you can fill out the forms yourself. However, nobody likes doing that. So PSU has partnered with a company called Sprint Tax, and they buy in bulk a number of forms. They're not actually buying the forms. They're paying a fee for having the forms generated. That's a lot less than if you paid for it yourself. And they're making these available to you for free. You'll get a code that when you use this online service, when it comes time to pay, you put in the code and it will reduce the federal preparation fee to 0. You still do have to pay for the state fee. Up until last year, Sprint Tax what they do is they basically prepare PDFs for you that you download and mail in. This year they're working on making them fileable by e-file, so you don't have to send in a paper copy. They did a seminar on this. They mentioned it. It didn't sound like they were certain they were going to have it ready for this tax year, but it may be. And if it is, that may involve an additional fee. one of the huge problems that can happen, and this is why I do these webinars, is you're a non-resident alien, you have to fill a non-resident form. TurboTax is the most popular tax preparation software in the United States. There's many of them, but they're the most popular. They do not prepare a non-resident form. They do not ask you any questions to screen you to see if you're a non-resident. And if you file this form, you won't be paying the correct amount. You may answer questions that then leads them to believe you're eligible for certain deductions that you're not eligible for. You will get too much money returned to you. And when you're getting money that you're not eligible for, the IRS calls that tax fraud, even if you didn't know what was happening. So you don't want to do that. If any friend suggests to you that you use anything other than Sprint Tax, please contact me and let's talk about it to make sure, because there are some other companies out there that do have some software. Tax Act is one. However, Sprint Tax does a better job of gathering information about your status so that it makes sure, first it tells you for certain whether you're a non-resident or a resident alien. And then based upon that, it prepares the correct form for you, the non-resident form, or it refers you, if you are in fact a resident, it refers you to TurboTax or any of these other companies that you want to use. So please, 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 if anybody tells you they're using some great software where you can get some more money than using Sprint Tax, before you do that, please talk to me. Another problem can be not getting your W-2. Tax forms are due April 15th. Don't wait until April 14th to start investigating why you haven't received your W-2. I would put something on your calendar if you're working February 1st, verify I have my W-2 as a reminder. If you're working for PSU, you'll have a BanWeb account and you go into the employment section, look under tax documents, and you should find a W-2 there for you. If your employer is mailing a W-2 to you and it's not received by February 15th, then contact them. And if they're making it available online, contact them if it's not available by January 31st. When you receive an envelope that says important tax document enclosed, please open it immediately and inspect it. Particularly look to see if your Social Security number is on the document. Don't wait to open these documents until you're going to sit down and prepare your tax forms, because you might find there's a mistake that needs to be corrected. So I think I mentioned this already. Yeah, you want to make sure your correct Social Security number is on your W-2. Does your name match the name on your Social Security card? This you want to get taken care of when you work for an employer, is you want for your paycheck and your employment records there with your employer to have the same name, the same spelling that's on your Social Security card. If they don't match and if you file a tax return and the name that's on your W-2 and on your tax forms don't match your Social Security card, they're going to wonder if this is a fraudulent return, and they'll be contacting you to come and prove your identity. And it can really slow down getting your return. You want to match the amounts on your W-2 with your last pay statement from that company. If there's incorrect names or Social Security numbers, that must be corrected by the employer. Some will tell you that they don't need to do that, but they must. and there's a web page you can refer to that they specifically give you a phone number to call if your employer refuses to give you a corrected copy. Again, a 1042, if you receive a taxable portion of your scholarship, the people paying you the scholarship should give you a 1042-S that documents what portion of that is taxable. These are not required to be sent out until March 15th. So if you do have scholarships, maybe you don't want to be in too much of a hurry to get your tax return filed as soon as possible, because you might end up getting one of these and have to refile or file. It's called filing an amended return. And that is the end of the presentation. So I hope there's a few questions, because I know I didn't explain that thoroughly. And we can go on to some other topics too, but let's pause here for questions.
So Greg, hello.
Yeah.
As for today, what document do we need to submit to HR?
So you're going to be going to work for PSU?
Yeah.
Okay. They will ask you to fill out a W-4.
Okay.
And that may be, I don't know if they're online with that or if they give you a paper copy.
They gave me PDF file.
The paper copy?
Yeah.
Okay.
PDF file.
Yeah. And then, hang on, I'm going to silence my phone here. Yeah, the CONRA
Okay.
is the other one. That's
Okay.
the main one.
Mm-hmm.
From India, there's no reason to fill out documents regarding your treaty benefit.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that's the only two. But what packet did they give you of forms?
I believe only two, actually three, but one is some Google document which is locked from HR. I'm not able to access that.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm only able to access W4 and co-NRA.
Okay. Yeah, those are the two most important, I think.
Okay. Can you go through how to fill co-NRA form?
You know, it's just asking you, some questions like your name, what years were you here?
Okay.
So like you just came in 2020, correct?
2019.
2019. Okay, so you'd put down 2019. What was your visa? F.
Okay.
2020. What was your visa? F. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've looked at one. It may ask you how long you anticipate staying here.
Okay.
That's not a contract you're signing. Just make your best guess.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't tie you into anything. It just helps them to project. So let me talk just a little bit about residency for students. So for the first 5 calendar years that you're here, you are considered a non-resident alien.
Okay.
So you came in 2019.
Yeah.
So in counting days of transit into and out of the United States are not considered days of presence.
Okay.
So like if you came here on December 31st, technically you were not physically present in the United States at all during that year.
Okay, yeah.
If you came on December 30th, well, now the 30th was your day of transit. You were here completely on the 31st. You were here in, let's take this year. You were here in 2020. That's your first year, even though it was only 1 day.
Okay.
So like you came in 2019, so that would be 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23. All those 5 years, you would be considered, as long as you're on your F visa, you'd be considered a non-resident alien.
Okay.
But that next year, then you would be considered a resident.
Okay.
Is there anybody in the seminar who is not an F or J student? You're not? Sometimes we get visiting scholars on a J, and their rules are a little bit different. They get 2 out of 6 years. Okay. Any more questions about that?
And we have to just mail the HR, right? Those two forms.
I don't know. If you could certainly mail them, or you could take them there and drop them off. I don't know what COVID restrictions are. I would think it must be possible to walk in the office and leave a form.
Believe it's not open currently.
Okay. Yeah, so just go by whatever they say. If they say mail them, we're not open, then that's what you do.
Thank you.
I can actually help with that one. HR has a document upload option from their homepage that takes you to like a portal where you can choose what documents you're submitting and upload them after logging in with your Odin. So I know the Conra goes there. Probably any other forms that you would submit to HR at this time will go there too.
So is there anything that a person could go back? Let's say they uploaded it last week and now they're uncertain. Did I get that uploaded or not? Can they verify?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that, but
Okay.
I could probably find out.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yep. You mean like checking the status of something you already submitted as the user?
Yeah, or just, if it comes up that they say, hey, we never received it. You go, well, I uploaded it. Well, we never received it. Is there any way the student can verify?
Yeah, good question. I can look into it.
Apart from doing a video of your camera, with your camera, taking the picture of the screen as you upload it, I don't know what else you could do. Any other questions? How do you feel about all this information that you've been given? Is it overwhelming? Scary? I know it can be boring.
It's like, other than scary, it's confusing.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make sure you get the help that you need. So,
Yeah, sure.
so the first thing you want to do with taxes when you're at PSU is relax. Just relax. We're going to help you through it. But just keep us informed when you have questions. Please do refer to this, but I'm always available to answer questions or any uncertainties that you have.
I'll go ahead and end the recording as well. Folks can stay on the meeting if you have other questions or
Okay.
want to chat, but I'll go ahead and end the
Greg,
recording.
I have one more question.